I think many of you remember reading what Frederick Douglass, the great American abolitionist, had to say. He said, I paraphrase him, that freedom is never given to you. Freedom only comes with struggle, and it's a fight that has to be won. And anyone who knows the history of the trade union movement, and I just met with some great trade unionists a few moments ago who are on board our campaign, you understand that 100 years ago, 120 years ago, when workers were forced to work outrageous hours, paid starvation wages, unable to take time off, workers all over this country said, enough is enough. We're going to organize unions, we're going to collectively bargain, we're going to get involved in the political process. And God knows all of the good things that the trade union movement has done for the American middle class. Here is that workers understood they could not do it alone. No worker is strong enough to take on a powerful corporation. They had to work collectively. In the civil rights movement, there are names of people who died, who were lynched, who were beaten unmercifully, whose names we don't even know. And their message got out to other people, and to other people. And the African American community and their white allies came together. And as was mentioned, I was very proud to have been at that march on Washington in 1963 with Dr. Martin Luther King. But the point here is it wasn't Dr. King, it wasn't Malcolm X, it wasn't any individual who helped make the changes that ended apartheid in America, that allowed for the voting rights of Americans who happen to be black. It wasn't any individual who did it. It was millions of people standing together and saying, enough is enough. We will not accept racism. Early 1900s, women in the United States of America could not vote. And before that, their property rights were limited. They got a divorce, their husband got it, custody and all that stuff. And for a very long period of time, way back when, women in the suffragist movement came together and they said, you know what? Women will not be treated as second-class citizens. And they struggled, and they went to jail, and they went on hunger strikes, and some of them died to say that women will have equal rights. 50 years ago, not a long time ago, in the context of American history, there were very few gay people who had the courage to come out and say, I'm gay, and I'm proud, and I'm not ashamed of it. There were people, but they were very few. And the reason for that is they would be harassed, they would be persecuted, they in some cases would be physically beaten. But finally, people in the gay community said, enough is enough. And they worked with their straight allies all over this country. And the American people finally said, we respect all people regardless of their sexual orientation. From a historically very brief period of time, public consciousness in this country underwent a fundamental change. I very often go to high schools in the state of Vermont. I love to speak to the young people. And I go to some of the conservative parts of our state. Last time I was there, I asked the kids, I said, well, tell me, what do you think about gay marriage? And they kind of shrugged their shoulders and they rolled their eyes and they said, what's the big deal? What are you talking about? That is revolutionary. It is revolutionary because consciousness has changed. But my point here is it did not change because a conservative Supreme Court voted 5-4 to allow gay marriage. It changed because millions of people demanded that change. As Americans, we have a right to be extremely proud of the progress that we have made in making America a less discriminatory society. We all know that much more needs to be done. We all know, and God knows what we saw in Charleston 2 weeks ago about the horror of racism and the fact that so many people still harbor racist views in this country. We know that sexism exists. We know that homophobia exists. But we also know that we have made progress in significant ways. If we were sitting here 30 years ago and somebody jumped up and said, you know, I think we're going to elect an African American as president in 2008, nobody would believe that. But it happened. We should be proud that we're judging people out of the But while we have made good progress in combating racism, sexism, and homophobia, discrimination against the disabled community, while we have made good progress in all of those areas and should be proud of our progress, there is one area where not only have we not made progress, but we are losing ground, and that is the economic struggle. This, brothers and sisters, is a tough fight. Because when you take on the billionaire class, you are taking on the most powerful people in the world. Yeah, we can fight for a woman's right to choose, and some of the billionaires have no problem with that. Yeah, we can fight for gay rights, and some of the billionaire class, they're gay themselves, they can live with that. But when we demand of them that they start paying their fair share of taxes, that they create jobs in America, not in China, that they become part of the American solution, not our problem, then we have vigorous opposition. Now, in my view, we can beat them, but the only way we can take on these enormously powerful people who control the economy, people who to a significant degree own the Republican Party and own too many Democrats, people who have huge power over the media. The only way we can beat them is when we stand together, as civil rights activists did, as women's suffragettes did, as gay activists did. When we stand together and tell them that this country belongs to all of us and not just to them, when we do that from coast to coast, we are going to transform America. Again, it is not electing Bernie Sanders as president. That's a good start. It is developing a movement that you and your brothers and sisters all over this country have got to be part of, because we don't win unless that happens. Let me conclude my remarks by telling you of an experience I had a couple of years ago. There is a very small town in northern Vermont, right on the Canadian border. And I was invited to participate in a program that honored veterans who had served in World War II. We're so proud to see so many of them there. Pretty good health. And the daughter of the guy who organized the event played a video before the ceremonies began. And the video was of Franklin Delano Roosevelt speaking to Congress on December 8, 1941. You all remember what that was? That was the day after Pearl Harbor. And what Roosevelt was doing in a joint session of Congress is essentially declaring war on Japan, and within a short time, war would be declared in Germany. Now, why was that day so interesting and important? The truth is that on December 8, 1941, the United States military was in pretty poor shape. We were in no condition to fight a war in Asia against Japan, let alone a war in Europe against Italy. Our military was weak. We were not producing the tanks, the guns, the planes that we needed. And yet, while the war ended 4 years later in 45, within 2.5 years, the war was essentially won. The United States had put together the best military in the world. The United States was producing the guns, the tanks, the planes, the weapons our soldiers needed. We did that in 2.5 years and helped win the war both in Asia and in Europe. Now, why do I say that? I say that because when our country puts its mind to it, there is nothing that we can accomplish. I don't want people to tell me that the United States of America is incapable of putting together a healthcare system that guarantees healthcare to all people. I don't believe that. I don't believe that this country cannot create an educational system which has the best pre-K system in the world that allows every person to get a higher education if he or she has the ability, and regardless of income. I don't believe that. I don't believe that we cannot rebuild our crumbling infrastructure and create millions of decent paid jobs. That this country, with all of its technology, with all of the idealism of its young people, cannot lead the world in transforming our energy system and reversing climate change. Our job is not to think small, it is to think big. We are the wealthiest country in the history of the world. There is nothing that we cannot accomplish if we stand together and put our minds on it. So this campaign is not just about electing the president. This campaign is about launching a political revolution in which every